Welcome to How to Yu-Gi-Oh! I've more than earned the right to talk about this. So Chapter 1. Let's explain cost adding. Chapter 2. I think when it comes to this year, we've seen as players, I think a lot of you YouTubers have had a lot of complaints about the cards that have been released. And rightly so, to some degree, true. We have had some broken cards. But I think there's something that is not really being mentioned and something that's really being overlooked. And this is something I'm going to say now. Ever since we entered the XYZ era in 2011, around there, Konami has been making cards without costs, broken cards without costs for a very long time. Cards with really strong cards with like a cost has just not been a thing. Okay, it's just generally been make a card broken, don't put any kind of cost there, whatever goes, and that's the way it is.
Facts.
So why is that relevant? Why it's relevant is first let's look at Zena, right? Again, this is an effect as you can see in front of you that's really quite ridiculous. However, it's a link 5. What does this mean? They could have easily made this card a link 1, for example, meaning that it could just be easy to make. And usually they would do things like this. They would make cards like this, a link 1. Just very easy to get out, very easy to just do on your first turn. But this requires a lot of investment. A lot of investment, to make this card, a lot of investment, to make it work. A lot of investment. And I think, to me, this is the start. This is what we need to be doing with broken cards. I'm not a fan of broken cards, but if we are going to be in a future that makes broken cards, and this is going to be a thing, then add a lot of cost to them invisibly in ways that we can see. And making a strong effect a link 5 is the way forward. We have Borrowed Shroud Dragon again. This effect, as you can see in front of you, is pretty good, quite strong. But look, it's a link 5. That's again a lot of investment for the kind of effect you're getting. That's something I can agree on. If we go to the next slide, as you can see here, we have Topologic Blaster Dragon. Look at all these effects. They are really quite strong, really quite ridiculous. However, it is a link 5, okay? It gets to look at your opponent's extra deck, banish one card from it. You get to shuffle all spells and traps on the field into the deck. You get to shuffle all other monsters. This is extremely strong. I'm extremely busted, but the investment it takes to make this card is again significant, right? It's 2+ effect monsters. This is a link 5. This is not something that you can just whip out just straight out the gate. This is a lot of things that you can do. So you then have Perfectron Hydro Drive Dragon. Again, this is something that is out in OCG. Whether we'll get it in TCG, we'll see. But you look at this card again, it is a link 5. So again, this is sure, I think one of the only other cards that's easy to make relatively, but you have to make a link 5 in order to remake this card. So again, it is apt. So it might be you think it's easy to make, but the investment it takes to make Perfectron Hydro Drive Dragon is quite a lot. And I think, especially in TCG, as you're seeing a recurring trend here, where we don't have Omni Negates, where we don't have generic Omni Negates going, these cards are priced quite high. Do we have FTKs in the TCG with Zena? Yeah, we do. But are they something that are easy to do? Whatever. I think now they are pretty easy. But when we get to Beyond the Brave, when we get more board breaking cards, it's gonna be not that easy to be doing these FTK cards. And then we go to the next slide and we have the Charmer Quartet in Bloom. and the world's greatest gallant thief. Again, look at Charmer Quartet. It can revive a card. It's being used for some shenanigans, but it is a link 4. It's not a link 3. It's not. It's a link 4. So quite again, really strong effect, really good. And you have World's Greatest Gallant Thief. It is a level 8. Again, you use up your normal summon to use this card's effect. So really quite strong, really quite ridiculous when you look about it. But look at the price that you're paying. Look at the price that we pay. Overall, what have I got to say, summarize when it comes to this video? That this year, I think there's been a lot of flack, been a lot of pushing the buck and saying that Konami really hasn't done anything when it comes to new cards. And I would really say that's not true. Now, are some of these cards I would not like to see in the game? Absolutely. Xena is just, there's no reason for it to exist. It cannot be denied. There's just some cards here with effects that are complete, Xena being one of them, just really quite dubious. However, are these cards with appropriate effects and costs with them? Absolutely. When I think about Xena being a Link 5 and having that effect, to me, that makes sense. And it's balanced in that way because you have to do a lot of resources. You use a lot of resources to make Xena. It's not something you can just make turn 1. And if you are making it turn 1, you've got to plan. You have to plan to go towards it. There's loads of hand traps that you've got to face. There's loads of things that you've got to face. And in TCG, it's even harder. Sure, Drolan Lockbird is semi-limited. Yeah, we can say that. But you do not have Omni Negates to aid you and to guide you to protect your combo. It's not the same. And you've got to go through hoops and hurdles to get this card working. You have to set some cards. There's just loads of things that you've got to do, okay? And I think that's part of the reason why, I think going forward, to me, this is how we should. I think this is the middle ground where I think I can agree on. We should be making cards like this. Now, do I want us to be having broken cards in Yu-Gi-Oh? Absolutely not. I think broken cards are not the way forward. But again, I understand that Konami is a business. This is rarely in life do we get the things that we want. And so really, it would be nice. We need to not be satisfied, but a middle ground is somewhere where to go. Having cards that have a high cost to make with high return, high cost, high return, I think, is the way forward. And that's something I can definitely agree on into the near future. Let's head on to the conclusion. Final chapter. Okay, so here we are at the conclusion. And all I've got to say is, well, yeah, this year of 2026, it's interesting. There are going to be some things, definitely, that as a community, we don't agree on, for sure. I think we all are in general agreement that cards with broken effects are just things that we shouldn't be making going forward. However, Konami being a business, being whatever, they're inevitably going to be making cards like this because they need to be selling. No one is in the business of making money and not making a huge amount of sales. So, making broken cards is a given, I think, in the way things are. But what I would like to see and what I would like to see more is adding higher costs to these broken cards. Make them link 5s, make them link 6. If a mouse is going to have a broken effect, then make it sure that we have to go through an arm and a leg. We've got to tax your soul. It's got to be a lot of things that you've got to do to get this effect to work. Make it to be in such a level that the investment and time that it takes to make this card, to make these cards, are good. And that's what I like to see. When I look at the going second cards that we've got released this year, they're much easier to use, much they're not that difficult to understand, and definitely have a higher plus and advantage to being used more often. This is the way I would say, as a hot take, that I would like to see going first cards to be designed. Not necessarily to be broken, but to have such a high cost in making them, in terms of time, in terms of like loops, in terms of like hurdles, make them extra complicated, make them very complicated to the point where like it just doesn't make sense for you to be using them, and and we would be relying on simpler effects. Let's not have, negation effects. Definitely, that's something I'm proud of, that we don't have negation effects in 2026. That's good. Let's have more cards that are disruption. Let's have more cards that search. If not having negation means that we have more cards that are searching, then I'm all for it. If it means that we have unlimited searching, then I'm all for it. I would rather have unlimited searching than unlimited negates. Definitely. If I'm picking my poison, then I'm picking the poison of searching rather than negating. Because again, we as players have to face that. And what is better to face? Searching rather than negation. Not at least with searching, but with searching, right? It doesn't stop gameplay. No one is stopping each other gameplay. We can get more going first cards like Ketu. There are solutions, right, to searching. It can be disrupted. We can fusions, we can both play first, we can both have cards like that. There's ways that we can mitigate that. Konami can mitigate that. However, with negation, there is no way to mitigate that with power. Power creep will just introduce more cards that just say no. Introduces this vicious cycle of negation, negation, negation. Whereas with searching, the way to stop it wouldn't necessarily be negation, but with more ways of going second, being able to play first. And I think that would be much healthier for the game going forward. And that's all I've got to say in this video. Tune in next time as I talk about more things on this channel. Hope to see you soon.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.